A couple months ago, I was here and I delivered a message called Great Snakes, and I did not have an ending for it. So I said I would continue it, and so I think I've come up with something. Last month, our neighborhood got buried in snow, and everything got shut down, and with the kids out of school for a week, Elizabeth and I saw the opportunity for some much-needed homeschooling. So day after day, we gathered the children for installments of the Hobbit movies. We consider it an essential part of our parental duty not only to equip our children for the challenges of this world, but also to acquaint them with the culture and customs of Middle-earth. You know what they say, if you don't teach your kids about the Ring of Power, someone else will. Probably Led Zeppelin. Or I guess maybe it'll be Amazon, which used to deliver books, but now has the power to generate prehistory for the Tolkienian universe. Who controls the present, controls the past, as Orwell said. The Hobbit was originally written so that bookish people, armchair homebodies with little athletic inclination and big hairy feet, could envision themselves whisked away on an unexpected journey with a kindly wizard and a rugby team. Good preparation for pudgy boys dreading a camping trip and girls getting ready for Smith College. Elizabeth and I both had formative relationships with that book. Now, my teenagers, their Middle-earth literacy comes mostly from internet memes, like Boromir saying one does not simply fill in the blank, is a popular one with 100 variations like one does not simply pass Gandalf, or one does not simply touch MC Hammer. But pop culture, and then there's the pop culture references like, and my ex. So for them, it was a delightful game of, oh, that's where this stupid thing comes from. Yes, but the reason people keep joking about this comical moment is that it's a minor flash of humor in an emotionally wrenching journey. Anyway, now we've once again carried our children up the rocky slopes of both trilogies. Connor did sleep through a chunk of the last movie, sort of like passing out for part of a car trip. We're back in the Shire already? Yes, you fell asleep. Now help us unpack. What happened? Well, Frodo and Sam broke up. But Legolas and Gimli finally got married. Sorry, I forgot to say spoiler alert. One thing the kids found to be entirely underwhelming was the dragon. Now here is where the strength of movie making fails. Because watching a CGI dragon awaken in a treasure vault or rain fire on Lake Town, no matter how expensive the special effects, cannot compare with sitting in a bed by lamplight, reading, and envisioning yourself facing this beast. There's only so much that we can worry about Bilbo Baggins in the second film when we've already been told that it's a Hobbit trilogy. Plus, we don't fear dragons like we used to. Our dragon anxiety is at an all-time low. Giant beasts are nowhere near as frightening as microscopic virus particles and Supreme Court judges, whose lifetime appointments make them unusually susceptible to dragon sickness. Tolkien did not invent that dragon. He inherited it from Beowulf, an Anglo-Saxon legend that he had translated into modern English. In that story, an ancient dragon had been slumbering on a big pile of treasure, and when a thief steals a single cup, the monster, being an uptight Anglo-Saxon sort of dragon, takes to the air, burning villages with its breath. King Beowulf comes out of retirement as an adventurer to fight this beast, and it mortally wounds him before he kills it with a dagger. The Beowulf dragon seems to have been borrowed from an old Norse legend of a greedy dwarf who killed his father and then hid himself away in a treasure cave until nesting upon this pile of wealth gradually turns him into a poisonous lizard. Then the theft of a piece of treasure awakens him, inciting a rampage, and he'll also be killed by a hero with an enchanted sword. These stories, and then Tolkien's story, have a fascinating common denominator. The dragon as a symbol of greed and danger and laziness. Dragons have long been symbols of various types of danger and harm. Old maps of the world used to use the caption, "Here be dragons," to mean uncharted territories. Ironically, "Here be dragons" turned out to be the Americans. And in some ways, it would have made sense, instead of naming the continents after some cartographer, to just keep calling it "Here be dragons." The word dragon comes from the Greek language, possibly from Draco, an Athenian legislator who replaced an old informal law code with a written code. It was a tough code, ordering the death sentence for everything from cabbage theft to homicide. When he was asked why the law was so rigid and cruel, he answered that small crimes deserved death, and for the bigger crimes, he couldn't come up with anything worse. So actually, he said, the cabbage thieves were getting their just desserts and the killers were getting off easy. It is from Draco that we get the English word draconian, meaning excessively cruel punishment. And then later, the kind of monster whose cup gets stolen so it burns a whole village was named after Draco, the dragon. Do we know this word, draconian? Is it still around? It's endangered, you know. Like if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And then the English language is just going to be nothing but words like FNAF and Rizzler and blog, and we'll wonder what happened to it. So please, please, use an old word. And if somebody asks, just explain what it means. Some of the most famous snakes in religion are found in Greek mythology, like Heracles fighting the many-headed Hydra, Apollo killing the python, Perseus decapitating the serpent-haired Medusa. You could almost say behind every great man there is a decapitated snake. The Greeks loved presenting themselves as civilized saviors, rescuing the world from dangerous serpents, but we've got to be careful about taking Greek myth too literally, since we know from archaeology that classical Greece was built on the bones and ruins of peaceful utopias run by priestesses. A lot of this Greek mythology comes from barbarians rampaging through convents and then telling everyone that the nuns were scaly monsters. Like Heracles bullies the local midwives. It just doesn't sound as heroic as Heracles battles the Hydra. The association of the serpent with the shamaness is clear from Greek history. The enlightened god Apollo, they say, slew the great python, but the fumes of this buried monster's decay continued rising, giving visions to a priestess in a cave, the Pythia. And for almost 2,000 years, the oracle in this cave at Delphi uttered predictions of the future. It turns out she could predict everything except the CO2 detector. But then if she had, they would have figured out that there was a natural gas leak in the cave that was causing these visions, and then it would have stopped. But no matter how intellectually and philosophically self-congratulatory the ancient Greeks became, and these were the people who invented pretentiousness, Greek writers from Plato to Diogenes to Herodotus attested that the words of this psychedelic shamaness always proved to be true. The all-knowing Python priestess is one of the few surviving textual examples of the positive association of the divinely inspired woman with the serpent companion. But from prehistoric symbolism, we can see that this partnership was central in ancient spiritualities, long before stories like the Garden of Eden put the blame on all of humanity's problems, on women and snakes talking to each other. From prehistoric symbols and vestigial traces in mythology, we can reconstruct elements of belief from before classical Greek myth and history. In one story, creation begins with a goddess, Eurynome the wide wandering, who dances in the swamp of dark chaos. And her graceful movements massage the elements apart into sea, land, and sky. Then, taking hold of the north wind, she forms a companion, the serpent Ophion. Assuming the form of a dove, she lays a great egg, and the snake coils around it to fertilize it until it bursts open. I know, we keep squinting at this. That's okay. What we're seeing here on this ancient piece of pottery is this common ancient symbol of a snake that is coiling around this world egg to fertilize it so that it can hatch, so that all of the stuff can come out. And out of this egg come the sun, moon, and stars, the planets and animals, the components of the habitable world. Then things go badly. The snake begins congratulating himself and telling everyone that he's the creator, and so the goddess kicks his teeth out and banishes him to the underworld. Now, in this story, the male snake is a necessary partner and protector, but once he starts acting patriarchal, the trouble starts, and the goddess punishes him. In Mayan mythology, the bird and the serpent are combined into a single figure. The primordial chaos cannot be separated into land, sky, and sea without the feathered serpent. Now, this is a special being who can travel all realms, possessing the scales of a sea snake and the feathers of a quetzal bird. As in other mythologies, the serpent aspect symbolizes immortality. This is a picture of a different snake. I just liked it. And the green feathers symbolize abundant forest growth. In addition, this singular figure in Mayan mythology encompasses a spectrum of gender, being simultaneously the masculine snake and the feminine bird. And this feathered serpent, they say, swam in the primeval muck where she encountered the storm god Huracan. And together they agreed that the water, land, and sky must be separated so that humans could be formed and begin farming. Ancient Chinese mythology contains dragons, both good and bad. Flying serpents are associated with dangerous lightning and much-needed rainfall. And in ancient Chinese flood narratives, a dragon called Yinglong saves the world by carving canals with its tail, allowing the floodwaters to drain away. The dragon is still celebrated as part of Chinese New Year parades, in which dancers guide massive puppet dragons that slither in the air through the streets, purifying the houses and the businesses they pass. In the Chinese zodiac, 2024 is the year of the dragon. The dragon is an earth sign associated with the feminine side of the yin-yang. Lucky for children who are born this year, unless they suffer from double dragon penalty of self-doubt. And they say it's a good year for the rest of us who have been hoping to rise out of a slump. So happy Dragon New Year, and I hope that that will come true. The snake has always been a fascinating symbol. For our prehistoric ancestors, the serpent emerging, shiny and new from its wrinkled old skin must have looked like a magical act of rebirth and immortality. And then, of course, there was the whole issue of poison or strangulation or being swallowed whole by some giant anaconda. As a kid, I was taught a song to sing while being eaten by a boa constrictor. Oh, gee, it's up to my knee, and oh, heck, it's up to my neck. That's a Shel Silverstein poem. I and I guess that's a pretty serene way to feel about being swallowed whole by this thing. Part of humanity's spiritual journey in all parts of the world has been coming to terms with terror, including the terror of the serpent, somehow integrating this into religion, not just labeling it evil or an eternal enemy, but making it part of a belief system. And here I'm not referring to that theory of ancient space lizards mating with primates to create the first humans, but I mean no disrespect to the space lizard believers out there. When we label the other or the unexplained as evil, we limit our own ability to learn from differences. Rather than empowerment, it is a hindrance in our journey. I think we have something to learn from ancient symbols of cooperation with these scary reptiles. Unless you run into a talking snake who says, "Don't tread on me." That guy needs therapy. Thank you.